Alright, my friends, welcome to the 17th video of this complete CSS tutorial series course. And this is the part 2 of Flexbox properties and what they do. Alright, we'll go right into the code and then we'll see what we have there. So I'm just going to separate my screen. So we talked about the justify content space evenly, that it has equal space to the elements. All right, the next on our list is align items center. Like I told you, when we say like I said, when we say justify content, this work on the main axis. Remember, the main axis. So the main axis could be horizontal or vertical. It is horizontal if we don't change the flex direction. If we don't change it, then the main axis is horizontal. But if we change the direction to column, then the main axis becomes the column of the flex direction. All right, then we'll be going to the align items. Now the align items are aligned in the cross axis. Cross axis means in the other direction. So for instance, if the main axis is horizontal, the cross axis will be vertical. If the main axis is vertical, the cross axis will be horizontal. So it is the other side. All right then, my friends. So for us to make this clear, now we are the main axis. In this case, it is horizontal. So what will be the cross axis? It will be vertical. How do we know? Let's give this a height of say 300 pixels. Height of 300 pixels. So you see now. So this side is the cross axis, while this is the main axis, because by default we did not change the flex direction. So how do we do that? We say align items center. If we say align items center, this element will come to the center vertically to the cross axis. Can you see? It is at the center. All these things are necessary if, for instance, you are creating a form and then you want your form to be at the center of your page. All these things can be helpful to properly center your elements. All right, and these align item centers also take in some values, which is number one value that we have looked at now. It is called center. The other value it can take in is called flex end, flex start, space between, space envelope, and stretch. So instead of center, this is at the center. If we want it to be at this side, we say flex end, or we could just say end, and then it comes to the end of this page. So we can say flex end, or we just say end. All right, we can also say by default it is start. So there's no need for us saying start. By default it is at the starting point, which is at the top of that of his parents. So there's no need for say start. But if by default it is here, or anywhere it is, you can change it to flex start, or you can say start. All right, we can also say space evenly. Let's just comment at this horizontal side out of it. We can say space evenly, space evenly. So we say space evenly, it will add the exact space across each axis from here. Sorry, I say space evenly, space between, not space evenly, space between. So if we say space between, it has Alright, sorry, I am making a little bit a little mistake. Now, remember we are using align items, so space between doesn't work in align items, but it works in align content, not align items. All right, we get that. So at this point, we can see that everything is collapsing because we've removed this, we commented on this gap. It was like this initially. So we commented on the gap. So because we are working with the aligned items. So when we talk about aligned items, aligned items, items are aligned along the cross axis as we said. So the properties, the values attached to it is flex start, flex end, center, stretch, and baseline. So when we say in this, we can say, what does baseline means? Every element has their own height and width based on their content inside of them. So by default, um, every element has a width or fit content. So if we say align items baseline, it will become fit content. So instead of it to say with fit content, you can say items baseline. It will actually take in their initial height in all the elements. It's just that this is applied to all the items in the parent, not just one at all. If we want to do something like this using with, what we are going to do is just to come into the bx, which all of them has this the same class. We can say the height should be fit content. So that you see that this did exactly what the baseline did, but this is applied to them individually. But we can just do this right from just saying align items baseline. All right. So the other so we have baseline, we have stretch, we have center, we have flex end. So from by default it is flex start because it is starting from the right and then to the from the left to the right. And then we have also flex end. Flex end means it will start from the right to the left. It's from the right to the left. So if we say flex hyphen end, you see it will start from the sorry, it is not from the right to the left. It starts from the bottom to the top. Why? Because align items, because of the main axis is horizontal, and then since the main axis is horizontal, and we said align items work in the cross axis, which is if the main axis is horizontal, the cross axis will be vertical. So by default, when it is in vertical and you say align items flex start, it starts at the top. When you say flex end, it starts at the bottom. So that is what this thing does. So if that is understood, we also have we talked about baseline. Also our center. Center, if you want it to be here, there we have center is here, it's at the middle, flex end is at the bottom, flex start is at the very first top, and then we can say uh, stretch. We can stretch the containers. We can also stretch the items inside of them. How do we do that? We can say flex item and then we can say stretch. When we say stretch, you can see how they are stretching like this. They are all stretching. So instead of baseline, we can say stretch. So stretch is the opposite of baseline. Yeah, let's move to the next one. The next one we have is align content. Align content aligns items along the cross axis, but in multiple line as well, a multi line. So and it has values like flex end, flex start, just as that other one, but it has what they call space between, space around, and also stretch. So instead of flex items, we can say flex content. Let's change this to align content center. So you see, we see align content center. So if you look at our browser, you find out that nothing is actually visible that is working, because what happened is that it does not affect the items. It only align it does not affect the items, but the containers itself. So like I said, it does not affect the items, but the container itself. What do we mean by this? This thing is a container, but it becomes an item when used inside the parent. So how do we make this align content work? Is by moving this thing directly to these parts, to the container itself, which is the children itself. It affects the children directly, not from the parent this time around. So if you say align content, you should apply this directly to the children or to the child that you want it to affect. That is how it works. So we can say center, we can say flex end, just the same thing. If we say flex end, you can see it comes to the end of the container, the parent, and then we can say space between. We can say space between. This is where you can use, but this one you are applying it directly to the children, not from the parent anymore. You can see we say space between, and that's it. We can also say space around. We can also say space uh space between. All right, my friends, so we'll move to the next one. The next one that we have on our list is called flex. It is called flex grow. But first of all, we start from order. Now, order changes the order of an item. By default, it starts from 0. So what does this thing mean? Let's comment on this stuff now. So at the parent, we can say align items. So from here, we can say order, and then we can set it. So friends, we can change the order of these items inside. How do we change the order? For instance, we can move this box 1 to the position of box 2, or to the position of box 2. We can change how they are being ordered, but the ordering starts from 0. That means this first element sits at the position 0, this second element sits at the position 1, this third element sits at the position 2. Why this first one? Guess what position does it sit? 3. Alright then, my friend. So what we can do, let's say we can say dot box 1. You add it, you can say order. We want box 1 to sit at the position 4, sorry, 3, which is the highest. You can see that box 1 is now in the position 3, while box 4 is at the position uh, box 1 is now in position 4, box 4 is now in position 3. So we can also say we can also do for box 2, and then change the position to 1, or let's say 0, and then you can see that box 2 is in position 0. So you can change the order of your items. All right, what does flex grow do? Flex grow is defined on how much an item should grow relative to others. For instance, we can, if this page is being enlarged or reduced, what do we want to happen to the elements? For instance, let's say, let's take, let's give them a width, all the boxes, let's give them a width of say 100 pixels, a width. So all of them are all having 100 pixels as their width. And let's also set their baseline to say align content. So and then we can align their content to baseline. So the sorry this all right, sorry, not content here. Instead, we say items, but not in the children, but in the parents. So if we say items, we say baseline, and then you can see that we have this good looking stuff. And then, so what we want to achieve is flex grow. How much do we want this thing to grow? You can see if I reduce, if I increase my browser, you can see the elements are all having the same width as we have set here. But what if I say flex grow and I say number one, which is box one, I say flex grow and I say uh, so flex grow, the value is between 0 and 1. So if I say flex grow and I say 1, look at what will happen to this box 1 here. If I increase the width of my browser, first of all, observe that they all have equal width. But if I increase the width inside of my browser, observe what happens. Now you can see that the width of my box 1 is larger than the width of the others. Why? Because we said it should grow. So it will grow while the others remain at their defined width. Like look at what the statement say. It say defines how much an item should grow relative to others. So it will grow twice of others as the width of the browser keep expanding. That is what flex grow does, but you apply that directly to a child, not to the parent, directly to a child. Now in another value that uh, another property that we'll be looking at is called flex shrink. This property is defined how much an item should shrink. It's just like the opposite of grow. So we want this thing to actually shrink. Let's say box 2, we say flex shrink 1. So this, it is when the browser is being reduced, not increased. You see how fast. So friends, you can see that when I say flex shrink 1 and I reduce my browser, you can see they all have equal width. But what does this thing actually means? Shrink means that when the browser is shrinking, the width of that container will actually grow So this, if I set this to 0, you see that it grows when the container shrinks. But when it expands, it shrink, the container itself shrink or goes back to its normal behavior. You can see that it is normal. But when the browser width is reducing, it grows. But why in the grow flex grow, when the browser is increasing, it is growing. When it is shrinking, it is reducing. But in the flex shrink, it is when it is shrinking that it is growing. So that is their difference between them. Then the other one is called flex basis. I use this a lot. This defines the initial size of an item before space distribution. So this flex basis, it is just like a width. It's just like giving uh, the their the width of the item. For instance, is instead of me to say width 100%, what I could do, instead of width 100 pixels, I could say flex basis 100 pixels. So this is still the same thing. Instead of saying width 100 pixels, you can say flex basis should be 100 pixels, because your containers are all flex, so it is proper to use things like this so that all of them will just be flex. Well, the next and the last one, okay, not the last one, the second, the first, the last one, we have align self. For instance, we don't want this, we want this uh, box 2. So we want this box 2 to be at the center of this parent. So instead of moving everything to the center, we can move just an element to the center, or any of them that we like. For instance, let's move this 2 to this end of this code. What we are going to do, we are going to say align hyphen self. We can say flex end. We see flex end, you can see that only this one was brought down here. Then we can also align this box 3. Box 3, we can say dot box 3 align self center, and then this box 3 can be, you can see how we can align them individually down to any position that we want them to be. So my friends, thank you very much. But a very quick tip, remember this, that justify content works always at the main axis. Also place content at the main axis, but align content across axis. Why we say multi-line is because we apply align content directly to the children element, not from the parent to the children element or to the child element. That is why we say multi-line. Why single line, you apply it directly on the parent, but it affects the children. Alright guys, see you in the next class. We'll be taking an example of how we can build a navigation bar with everything we've learned, and then we will get in your classwork before we move to the next topic. All right, thank you very much.